Hello everyone, it is with a heavy heart that I relate to you, the people of the internet, that the FCC has ruled to repeal net neutrality laws.
I had no idea you had such an emotional investment in ISP regulation. I don't know that was physically possible, but being Canadian, I am sorry for your loss.
FCC Chair Ajit Pai has just paved the way for allowing internet service providers in America to have untethered control over how we consume the internet.
Actually, the 2015 Open Internet Order was rescinded, meaning broadband providers are no longer Title II, they're back to Title I, and they actually have more transparency regulations than before. So it's basically like it was from 2003 to 2015, only with more transparency regulations.
They'll be able to speed up or slow down the sites that they want, block the sites that they want, and charge however much they want.
Well, that was true. Nothing was stopping them before. Sure, we can say the 2015 order was, but there were legal loopholes ISPs were getting around, even admitted to by the FCC lawyers. So in reality, to that regard, nothing really changed. They could speed up, slow down, block, fast lanes, slow lanes, charge, whatever they wanted during this time. The FCC of 2015 were trying to find a solution to a problem that never was really there, which is the same attitude we have for anyone pro-net neutrality. And it was more about control over their 2014 Verizon court battle that they lost because they were trying to argue that Title II rules applied to Verizon even though all broadband providers were Title I. It's just a bad argument in court case. And they went full tilt on it in 2015. And this is after the FCC were trying throughout the years to get Title II enforced, and finally it stuck.
All for their own interests.
Well, a service provider's interest is to service its customers. A customer's interests are only met by how that provider is meeting their demands. So the golden rule of business is the customer is always right. If you offer a product or service a customer doesn't want, they won't buy it. Markets work on demand, not on supply. So ISPs can try promoting internet that's blocked or throttled, and by the new 2017 rules, they have to tell the customer what they're blocking and throttling, as well as all their kinds of information. Additionally, that offer of selected services has to be cheaper than what they're paying for now and specific to their demands, or else they won't be interested. Buying something is getting what you want, and changing a plan is either getting more and thus paying more, or trying not to pay more, or downgrading and getting less and thus saving money. That's business. It's that simple.
Now, all those opposed to net neutrality claim that they will not exploit their newfound powers and that scenarios like ISPs charging for cable TV-style tiered packages for different types of internet content is nothing more than fear-mongering.
That's already available, even by mobile phone companies, and they're either packages, add-ons to packages, or some might offer things a la carte. This is really nothing new and has been offered prior to 2015. These options are all cheaper alternatives to more expensive packages. You buy exactly what you want.
But then that begs the question, why the hell are they asking for the power to enable them to do all these things?
The answer is simple. Smaller companies want to provide different services tailored to their customers at cheaper prices because that's what their customers want, and they want to compete. They also don't want to spend all kinds of time and money hiring lawyers to get around the 2015 ruling. Now, I'm unfamiliar with particular companies that were asking for this, so I'm kind of curious where you got your information and what supposedly nefarious robber baron was asking for this.
They say they won't fuck over consumers, and yet they're giving themselves the ability to do so if they so desire at their leisure.
How exactly are they screwing over their customers? They're not going to stop the existing contracts or plans. That would be an infraction in basic contract law unless there's a rule that allows them to cancel or at least negotiate. They're making money with those plans. Why would they give them up? On the sheer hope that their current customers will suddenly start wanting to spend more money on less services. That's illogical. However, now they can legally attempt to try other plans and promotions to get new customers, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That's like a known murderer asking for a gun while making...
Okay, getting overly dramatic, we're gonna skip ahead.
They say they won't use it to harm others for their own benefit, and yet they're asking for the means to do so if they want to, because reasons?
Really, this is a theoretical scenario of overly exaggerated proportions and ultimately unbelievable. This is not how business works.
Are we just supposed to take the ISP's word for it and believe that they'll be responsible with their new power and that they'll use it for our betterment?
Yes.
If you ask me, you'd be a fool to believe that.
And your reasons are?
Even while net neutrality laws were in place, there were already accounts of ISPs blocking competing apps or websites and implementing policies that benefit certain services over others.
Can you provide some evidence, please? And if this is true, doesn't that simply prove that the 2015 Open Internet Order is ineffectual, at least on being unable to stop ISPs from blocking apps? But please, I'd love to see some evidence.
So if they were already pulling bullshit like this while the ball and chain of net neutrality was keeping them at bay, imagine what they'll be capable of once those restraints are removed.
ISPs now have to state what they'll be blocking, throttling, or giving paid or affiliate priority data to, not to mention about 20 or so other requirements that the public and the FCC have to see. It must be approved by the FCC before they can render service, as opposed to previously, where it was simply assumed a one-size-fits-all approach applies to every package, data plan, or whatever, even though we know from the FCC itself that those Title II regulations could be broken to apply a la carte options.
They'd be able to blatantly mold the internet in their own image, and no one would be able to stop them.
There were certainly infractions prior to 2015, and apparently according to this gentleman after. I really can't comment on after, as that's his claim, but the infractions were few, not largely encompassing, and the majority of which were resolved before the FCC or FTC got involved in any major legal way. That's not to say they weren't important and they weren't legal battles, but it wasn't that big a deal. You, as an average internet user, were probably more angry at your ISP when service gets cut off, then comes back on after an hour or so, and that's as hard as it got for you.
Now, those opposed to net neutrality claim that government regulation interferes with ISP's ability to make progress and innovate, but there is no real evidence to suggest that any of that is actually true.
Okay, well, in 2015, all data from wherever or whatever applying new technology needs to be neutral on the wire. That is like saying, before we know what the technology is or what the business models will look like, we're not going to allow any form of innovation here because it's not going to be neutral. So defining innovation is difficult because it creates new things that disrupt how current things work. It's automatically not neutral. It's damaging that environment. But it certainly helps to experiment with innovation when you've got more money, and thus more brain power and capital. Unfortunately, the 2015 ruling hurt capital investment as well. For example, let's assume post-2015 ISPs couldn't create fast lanes or force those causing the problems, like Netflix, to pay for priority on their traffic, which means ISPs are spending a lot of money just to keep up with demand when the problem lies with the edge provider itself. While this is a problem for all ISPs, it's the smaller ones that feel it most. As reported by 60 smaller broadband ISPs in a letter to Congress, on December 12th of this year, just a few days ago, it states, since the Commission reclassified broadband as a public utility in 2015, investment has been heading in the wrong direction. In 2016, capital expenditures from broadband providers was $76 billion, $2.4 billion less than in 2014, the year before the FCC adopted its current misguided rules. The year of 2015 alone saw a 12% drop in CAPEX, or capital investment, by major providers: AT&T, Charter, Cablevision, Verizon, and CenturyLink. Though Comcast had a modest increase in CAPEX, these 6 largest ISPs in America had a net decrease of $3.3 billion. This matters because every $1 million increase translates to about 20 jobs through the multiplier effect. Thus, if an industry has lost $3.3 billion and 1 million equates to 20 jobs, you've just lost 66,000 jobs. Software, network engineers, creatives, designers, developers, technicians, they're all trying to create new products and services are just gone. That's just for the existing ISPs. I'm not going to get into the new rules and regulations and fees and other costs involved for startup ISPs as a result of 2015. The big one here is being or not enforcing the last mile ISPs to respect local loop unbundling, or LLU, which enables startups to lease lines from incumbent ISPs. That's a huge barrier to entry that was removed that kills competition. Seriously, if the 2015 Open Internet Order was just no blocking and enforced LLU, it was only a few pages long, the American broadband industry would be flying right about now.
All net neutrality has done is enforce a level of oversight so that ISPs can't just do whatever the hell they want with the internet whenever they feel like it.
All regulations that don't promote competition stifle the industry they're influencing, which is essentially what happens to anything that's Title II. It's like a game over moment. What you're saying to that industry is, if you're designated a Title II, is we're going to give up on competition and it's time to pick a winner. And then the government will heavily regulate that winner, and that winner becomes a monopoly. Now, I could argue for or against that in regards to things like things that are considered a utility, like in that regard, the backbone of the internet. There's definitely pros and cons there, like the roads. There's free market and government approaches, and we can look to history like the railroads or Ma Bell with the phones, which came about because of Title II. And then government made all sorts of antitrust laws. They had to. There's the Sherman Act, the Clayton Act, and this is classic self-fulfilling prophecy of government screwing something up and then making laws so government can clean up their mess but never fix the original problem and cause more problems in the process. That's almost what we have here, but because the internet is so fast and the 2015 ruling can be got around, things work out, just at a much slower pace. So we know that net neutrality prevents ISPs from forming fast lanes with edge providers, which would have solved problems rather quickly in 2015 for companies like Netflix while they were still busy building their infrastructure. Where Netflix wasn't ready for its popularity in 2014, and instead of them simply spending money that they had to do anyway, as any growing company would, they complained and lobbied to the government. I guess, I'm not sure why. Maybe they were looking for a handout or something. So during this time, they had to improve their own services so they could meet demand, and then ISPs could understand their customers better, because again, they couldn't make fast lanes. So by around 2016, Netflix was completely on AWS, or Amazon Web Services. It had all sorts of CDNs throughout the country. They could literally just click the mouse a few times and make more CDNs. AWS is really cool. So compare that to MetroPCS, which offered 0 rating to YouTube users on their smartphones back in 2010. Now the problem was they blocked other video streaming services. It also wasn't exactly clear what they were and weren't offering between their $40 to $60 plans. So for $40 a month, you got unlimited almost everything on your phone, but no other video options and no charge to YouTube data. So MetroPCS was the first to offer 4G LTE, and they had a brand new phone, which wasn't that great, and they offered a $20 rebate. And then the net neutrality Puritans went nuts. This is before net neutrality became an enforceable thing in 2015. So they ended up getting bought out by T-Mobile, which was another mobile carrier. And guess what T-Mobile's doing? They're 0 rating Netflix on a service called Binge On. And of course, the net neutrality people hate this. But Netflix doesn't. But wait a moment. Netflix is pro net neutrality and loves this setup. Why? Well, just think about it for a moment. T-Mobile is a mobile carrier. They don't really have any cabling or fiber like the ISP would. They don't even own the majority of cell towers in America. So Netflix has to support the pipe, which normally they would have gotten pissed at, right? But think about it. They're getting 0 rated, which means no cost to the consumer, just for their content, to subscribers they already own, and potentially new ones. Combine that with the packets they're sending. The maximum quality you can get on a mobile device is 1080p, to my understanding at least. Most people use a smartphone, so at most they could get is, I guess, 720p or something smaller. So Netflix is used to streaming 4K to PC users. So they're sending a smaller and cheaper product to the same and potentially newer clients. They're already got the infrastructure to do this. There's no chance of their packets getting throttled. This is a no-brainer. So Netflix is pro net neutrality, except when it benefits them. In reality, this is a win-win-win for both T-Mobile, Netflix, and the end user. Nothing stopping you from going on YouTube and using your data for watching movies there. But the Puritan net neutrality users hate this. But YouTube can't compete with zero rating. Well, just recently, T-Mobile is offering zero rating to other streaming video sites, provided you qualify. See? You see how fast the market operates? You see how good competition is? Even though T-Mobile is still the fourth largest carrier in America for 15 years now? And all of this is, of course, against net neutrality.
ISPs also keep touting that consumers have just as much to gain from net neutrality's repeal, but let's be real here, the ISPs have everything to gain and consumers have everything to lose.
That's not how business works.
It's about as skewed as a decision can be, and most people in America, both Democrats and Republicans, agree.
Let's be honest here, and I'm not singling Americans out here. People are dumb. And before that, they're ignorant, or sometimes both. You give them one talking point, one thing to wrap their heads around, like no blocking. You combine that with a daily convenience like the internet, and they turn into an angry mob if it's being challenged. Even I'm behind the rule of no blocking. But the 2015 Open Internet Order was 400 pages, 320 of which were regulations, and the rest were arguments for and against it. And yes, Ajit Pai was in there arguing against it because lawyers need some arguments in there for and against. And it's a massive series of regulatory hoops ISPs and startups have to go through. The worst, as I've said, completely blocks last mile ISPs to provide local loop unbundling. So I don't really care how many people say they're for or against, or that there were bots for or against, screwing up the comment period. Just give me an argument, provide evidence, and maybe I'll listen to you. There's so much ignorance favoring fear-mongering and emotion over evidence, and it's really painful to listen to. The main solution to all of this, to all the problems, is always competition. That's it. Net neutrality is not a factor when you've got an abundance of providers fighting over your customers, or their customers. If you don't make laws and rules that promote competition and protect the startup business, you get a railroad, you get Mob Bell, or any other government-created monopoly. And remember, there is no such thing as a natural monopoly. Government created this problem, lobbyists skewed the laws in their favor. As always, the answer to more government intervention is less government and more market forces.